So the refresh Model 3 has been out for just a while now, and we finally are starting to see deliveries of the performance Model 3, which is fantastic. But that leaves the question, when are we going to see the refresh Model Y? And all speculation was end of this year. However, earlier this year, Tesla officially said that they were not going to be releasing a refresh Model Y this year. And just yesterday, Elon Musk confirmed that, reiterating that there is no refresh Model Y coming this year. So it's definitely going to be 2025 before we see that. And Elon Musk did make the comment that understand 6-month time frame between Model Ys can actually be a lot more hardware, a lot of differences in that car. And although that is true, it does not add cooled seats. It does not add a refreshed front and refreshed rear. It does not add any of the new features that we see in the Model 3. So the question remains, should you get a Model 3 refresh, or should you just pull the trigger, as Elon suggests, and just get the Model Y right now because it's better than it was yesterday? Well, I'm here to hopefully help you answer that question today. So I'm sitting in a refresh Model 3, and this particular one is a rear-wheel drive Model 3. Starts at $38,990. Of course, you can jump up to the long-range all-wheel drive for $47,740, and then the performance Model 3 for $54,990. Now, understand with the Model 3, only the performance Model 3 qualifies for that $7,500 tax credit. So because of that, the performance Model 3 is not much different in price than the long-range all-wheel drive Model 3, and that is because the batteries come from North America, whereas the batteries in the rear-wheel drive and the long-range all-wheel drive Model 3 do not. So they do not qualify for the tax credit. So you will not get a tax credit unless you get the performance Model 3. But how does that compare to the Model Y? So the existing Model Y has been out since 2020, and from the exterior, not much has changed. However, they did finally put some better looking Gemini wheels. They're just the same thing, but they're blacked out. So satin black kind of look on these Gemini wheels, and the Model Y rear-wheel drive now starts at $44,990 before the tax credit. Now, after the tax credit, it comes in at $37,490. So it's actually cheaper than the Model 3 equivalent, and this one has a much bigger battery. So the Model Y will go 320 miles as compared to the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, which only goes 272. So quite a big difference. Jumping up to the long-range all-wheel drive, $47,990 or $40,490 after the tax credit. And then finally, the performance at $51,490 or $43,990 after the tax credit. These are some pretty big differences in price between the Model 3 refresh and the existing Model Y. And the Model Y, although has some obvious differences in size and certainly now in range, a lot has still not been added to the Model Y, including cooled seats, including the updated steering wheel with no stocks, which is, in some people's opinion, not a great thing. The screen in the back, there's a number of updates to the refresh that are going to be nice in the Model Y, and they will be coming eventually. But of course, like I said, and like was reiterated just yesterday, that is not coming this year. So let's get back to the question. Should you get the Model 3 refresh now, or should you get the existing Model Y? Or should you just wait for Project Juniper or the refresh Model Y? To start things off, let's take this Model 3 on a ride, because there's some things about this car that are really nice that you should probably be aware of when you're making this decision. All right, so we're putting this thing in drive, and we're gonna start moving around here. We're not gonna go far because I've driven the refresh Model 3 a couple of times, but there are some things about this that are pretty nice. First and foremost, if you're in a warm climate, and really in the summer anywhere, having cooled seats is really nice, especially if you have perhaps black interior, which can definitely get hot in the summer. Cooled seats is a big upgrade, seriously. And the Model Y not having those cooled seats at this point is definitely a missed feature. That is something that would be really nice to have, and that will obviously be coming with the refresh. Now, as you drive a Model 3, and I encourage you to go demo drive one yourself, the first thing you'll notice is just how quiet this thing is. They have done an amazing job improving the sound inside of this, and it's been done with a number of different things. Of course, they've upgraded the glass all around. They have put in new tires that not just add for efficiency, but are also better on noise profile. And in addition, some of the insulation around the car. But it doesn't just stop there. The next thing that you're going to notice is this is not the Model 3 of yesterday. This thing drives so smooth. It is butter smooth. And that is one of the things that's kind of not been the greatest about the Model 3 or the Model Y, and that was ride quality. It's kind of on the harsh side. Now, for performance, it's great to have kind of that stiff suspension, but not everybody wants a Tesla just to go to the track. Now, looking around the cabin, the dashboard and the door cards, they don't look nearly as nice as they did before. Now, at night, having this ambient lighting is pretty cool, and that does make it look a little bit more premium. Even when we look down at where the cup holder and the center console are, definitely feels cheaper. It's a much more firm plasticky feel, hollow, makes kind of some of those plasticky noises that you're used to. And over time, I think that this is going to get old on you, and that's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the refresh. The look of it is generally the same as it was before, but it's just a little bit different. On the flip side, one of the great things about this car is the seats are still just as comfortable as they were before. I argue that the Model Y that we have, which has the same seats as the previous generation Model 3, those are the most comfortable seats that Tesla makes. They are super plush, very comfortable, and they're not too aggressive in hugging you. So if you don't really like those bucket style seats that really hold you into place, like in the Performance Model 3, then you're going to really like these seats in the refresh as well as the previous generation. These refresh seats, of course, are now cooled, which is the huge improvement, but you don't really sacrifice on that nice plush feel in these seats. I will say the older seats have just a hint more comfort in them, just a little bit more plush, and we'll definitely be able to feel that after having driven this one and jumping over to the Model Y, which is next. And finally, let's talk about how the thing looks. I think it looks pretty good, but that is a subjective thing. So the previous generation has been around since 2017, a long time. So a refreshed exterior look is very nice, but some of you are going to be very concerned about two things in particular. The first thing that you're going to be concerned about most likely is, where are the turn signals? And the second thing, where is my gear shifter? Well, of course, the gear is now shifted on the screen, and auto shift is something you can enable where when you get in the car, as long as your seatbelt is buckled and you put your foot on the brake, it'll automatically go into the gear it believes it needs to go into. It's not perfect, but it's actually really, really good. It works in our Model X and our Cybertruck, and it is over 90% accurate on which direction it needs to go, which is great. And when it goes in the wrong direction, it's very easy to fix that here on the screen. So you shift gears here on the screen now instead of having a stalk. And for the turn signal, this is where things get a little bit more controversial. So the turn signals are now here on the steering wheel, and it does take time to get used to. Also, when you are going in a roundabout or you have this wheel turned quite a bit, it can become very difficult to figure out which button to press, and it takes time to get used to. If you have kids, this back screen is going to be clutch. We have a screen in the Model X and the Cybertruck, and it comes in handy all the time, not just for around town. As a matter of fact, I'm in the middle of a road trip right now, and it was just me and the boys, and having that screen not just back there, but being able to stream Disney Plus 1,000 miles was a lifesaver. So I'm glad to have that back there, and you will likely appreciate having that also. The final point about this Model 3 is price, and this is where I think things start to fall apart for the refresh Model 3. Everything about this car is better because some of the things that went the wrong direction are more than overcome with some of the nice added features of this car. I would much rather have this refresh Model 3 than the previous Model 3 because of those added features. It's hard to say that you're not giving up some things, but the value of those things is more than overcome with having a screen, having cooled seats, having a refreshed exterior, having better efficiency. This is a better car than it was previously, but the price isn't great for today's market. Here we are in the Model Y. Now, not much about this car is different than it has been for the last 4 years. Now, we did have a slight kind of interior refresh or upgrade, so to speak, on the inside in 2021, and then later we had an upgrade in 2022. For the screen itself, we have an upgraded processor. It's a much faster, snappier screen, and for some of the software updates, they actually come to that screen before the old processor, and it seems that some of the upgrades are not going to be possible in the older hardware. So this does have upgraded hardware. It has hardware for cameras. So a lot of that stuff that's hidden is the same in here as it is in the Model 3. It's the visual stuff that's different. There's no screen in the back. There's no cooled seats in here. You have the older dash in here, which I personally prefer over the new, as well as the center console. So a lot of the things that have been upgraded, to Elon's point, they're all kind of hidden. So there are a number of things that are better in this car, but generally speaking, because of the visual difference, you're gonna notice that this is not the refresh. So last month we had a pretty good offer on the Model Y at 1.99% financing. That has since gone away. So this month, there's no financing deal. So you're going to pay a full rates for interest rates on a finance for the Model Y. However, they still have the incentives around for the Model Y for the lease. So $399, $429 for long range all-wheel drive, and $509 for performance. Although the rear-wheel drive Model Y is $100 more in a lease than the Model 3, the long range all-wheel drive is only about $30 more. And then the performance is actually $90 cheaper to lease than the refresh Model 3. Now, when you go to finance or purchase these vehicles, that's where things fall apart very quickly for the Model 3, unfortunately, and that is because of the tax credits. At $44,990, this is the rear-wheel drive Model Y, which is what I'm sitting in right now. It is not a standard range Model Y any longer. It actually has 320 miles of range. It is 10 more miles than the long-range all-wheel drive. So this thing comes with a much larger battery than the rear-wheel drive Model 3 does. Stepping up to the long-range all-wheel drive, 47,990 and 310 miles of range. And then finally the performance at 51,490. Now, when we include those tax credits at point of sale, so as long as you qualify based on income only, you can transfer these credits at time of sale and nothing else matters. So $37,490 for the long-range rear-wheel drive, $40,490 for the long-range all-wheel drive, and $43,990 for the performance all-wheel drive. So significantly less money for this car than the Model 3 equivalent. It's about $7,000 less in the long-range all-wheel drive. For the long-range rear-wheel drive, it's $1,500 cheaper, but again, it's a long range, not a standard range like the Model 3 is. So there's a lot to think about with this car. So let's take this for a drive and talk about if this might be worth it. So with this Model Y, compared to our 2021 at least, it is quieter and it is smoother. It actually in 2023 got a new suspension, which was to add comfort, and it is noticeable. You can definitely feel this is a softer suspension. However, the suspension in the refresh Model 3 is even better, and it is even softer, even smoother, and we would expect to see that same kind of suspension comfort come to the refresh Model Y here next year. Everything else about this car, though, is about what it's been for at least the last year, or really over the last 4 years, with some of those minor upgrades. So the screen is faster, softer suspension, and we did get upgraded sound insulation in this. I will say the Model 3 does have the edge when it comes to how quiet the cabin is, so it has improved, but it's not the new refresh that we really want. The other thing, it's obviously less comfortable not having cooled seats on a hot day like today, and that is a nice thing to have, and you really miss it after stepping out of the Model 3. Everything else about this car, though, is exactly what you're used to. We have the gear shifter, we have the turn signals right here. Nothing's done on the screen. It does have the traditional screen versus the upgraded new refresh screen that's in the Model 3, so even smaller bezel around it and slightly snappier performance. We also don't have ambient lighting, so at night you can't have a techno rave show going on in the car. But for everyday use, this is such a practical car. Last year, this was the best-selling car in the entire world, not just electric car, of every car in the entire world. I believe the final number was 1.32 million Model Ys were sold last year. And there's no surprise. This is the jack of all trades electric car of today. It has great range. It has an amazing price after the tax credits, and it comes with a lot of features that you will not find after this kind of price point, after those tax credits. Things like autopilot, which has been around for a long time, and it is a huge benefit on road trips. You also have access to full self-driving should you elect to unlock that for an additional cost. And overall, the technology in this car is up there with the best of them. All of that, though, can be had around $35,000, which is what makes this such a good deal. Now, I know that the new microphone I'm using does a really good job of hiding background noise, but hopefully you can hear some of the road noise in this car compared to the Model 3 there, especially on the bumps. So that is the suspension making more noise and the wheels making more noise on these bumps on these roads. And those are the types of things that you'll notice that are different. Thinking about the Model Y itself, here's my thoughts. If you have a Model Y today, it is worth waiting for the refresh, in my opinion. However, that does not exclude the fact that we have had some pretty incredible deals already this year. Right now, things are just okay. There's not really amazing deals on Model Y, and that's because it looks like last month they sold a ton of Model Ys, which is good news for Tesla. However, you are used to having inventory discounts of upwards of $5,000, and we have not seen anything like that since the end of Q1 of this year. Now, the discounts that you may find in inventory are on demo models, and I've seen somewhere around $1,000 or $1,500 off for a demo model. But you don't know what kind of demo model it is. Was it used for what I'm doing right now, or was it sitting in a showroom, getting in and out of with all the customers? Who knows? So it's hit and miss on if that's a good deal or not. That is up to you to decide if you want a new demo model for a slight discount. Until discounts come back or prices change again for the Model Y, it's hard to know exactly when to make the purchase. And that is really the thing about Tesla, and it has been the thing about Tesla all this time. And that is things are changing all the time in these cars. So waiting for the next thing has always been the challenge. Oh, I'm ready to buy, but the new batteries are coming. Oh, I'm ready to buy, but it looks like we're getting a refresh. And really, at the end of the day, the thing that you should focus on the most is, do you have a Tesla already? Then it's probably okay to wait. If you don't, at some point you're going to have to jump, because things are always changing at Tesla. Things are always changing in these cars. And if you're waiting now, you're going to be waiting forever, because there's always going to be something new coming around the corner. So the point of all of that is, you're not going to be missing out on quite as much as you might think if you forego waiting another year for the refresh Model Y. And when the refresh Model 3 came out, it was quite a wait to even get one. And that's going to be the case for the Model Y. It's actually going to be even worse for the Model Y because the tax credit qualification, it's way more affordable than the Model 3 is, which is kind of crazy to think. This is such a popular car, and when the refresh comes out, there's going to be a long line for that car. The Performance Model 3 is kind of the example of that, because you can get a Performance Model 3 for about the price of a long-range all-wheel drive Model 3 because of that tax credit. So, final summary. What should you do? Should you get the refresh Model 3? Should you get the existing Model Y? Or should you wait for the refresh Model Y? These are all really good questions, and although all three options have their benefits, for me personally, I would choose a Model Y over a Model 3 most of the time. And the reason is it's more car and certainly more range on the low end of trims, and it comes at a better price. When it comes to performance, if you're looking for the performance variant, I'd probably lean towards the Model 3. You cannot find a car with that kind of performance at that price point anywhere. It's an incredible deal and awesome performance. Now, you're going to wait a while to get one, but That's an incredible car. For the rest of you, I would probably recommend waiting for the refresh Model Y. And the refresh Model Y, although it won't be coming till next year, it's going to be coming with some really nice features that we have been missing out on this Model Y for long enough at this point. Things like cooled seats. That screen in the back is really great if you have kids, and the comfort of what the next generation suspension is likely to be. Although I argue you can't go wrong with any Tesla, I still think the existing Model Y is the best deal you can get today, and waiting for the refresh Model Y isn't such a bad idea either. When the refresh does get launched, I recommend ordering quickly because Tesla has moved to more of a dynamic pricing model. So as demand peaks, they increase prices, and that is very likely going to be what happens when the refresh Model Y launches also. In addition, we're probably going to start seeing some pretty incredible deals on the existing Model Y as we move to the end of this year. They're starting to build up inventory across the US. There's no secret to that. And we're going to start to see some pretty good deals, I think, in the coming months for the rest of this year. And those are going to be enticing. And when they start to get really good, it's going to be hard to say no on just going ahead and getting the existing Model Y with some of those deals to come. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Would you rather have the refresh Model 3, or are you into the existing Model Y, or are you waiting for the refresh Model Y? For us, I think we're waiting for the refresh Model Y, although the right deal might change my mind on that. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Thanks for joining us today, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.